What's up, guys? It's the Senator, and I'm going to start off this video by saying that this is different from my usual content, but I'm going to be going over a game that I used to love playing as a kid, and not very many people know about it for a multitude of reasons. However, at its release, it was the largest game in terms of player count for any multiplayer first-person shooter, and it had servers that supported a total of 256 players in a single match, and this game was MAG. MAG stands for Massive Action Game, and it was a multiplayer-only, first-person shooter that was released exclusively for the PlayStation 3 in early 2010. Now, the setting of this game was in 2025, where there was a massive world war between three different factions, and you had the factions of the SVER, Raven, and Valor. And what was really cool about this game was the amount of lore and detail that went into these factions. The SVER was a faction that originated in Asia, the Middle East, as well as Russia, and just other Slavic states, and their style revolved around, basic guerrilla warfare. And the other faction was Raven, which was a faction primarily in Western Europe as well as South America, and their faction focused primarily on high-tech futuristic soldiers, like what you would expect out of a future soldier, or what you would think at the time 2010 what a future soldier would look like in terms of all the tech that they have. The last faction is Valor, and that was my personal favorite. And they're based in North America as well as Latin America, with their main headquarters being in Alaska. And Valor basically was just a copy of the US military in terms of how these guys looked, the weapons that they used, the vehicles, all that. And they relied primarily on just, having the toughest soldiers with reliable vehicles. And these factions were very important to the gameplay, because a cool factor that came along with this Shadow War story was whenever you launched the game for the first time, you were given a choice of which faction to play as. Now, this was sort of a pain, but you could go on and buy the ability to use another faction for just a few bucks on the PlayStation Store. But the biggest pain that came along with it was if you had friends that were another faction, you couldn't play with those friends. But overall, at the time, I thought it was so cool that they put this much depth into it. You can only play as this team, you can only use these types of weapons that go with this team. So you have Valor, which is mainly the United States military. They have M4s, so you only use American type weapons and M4s, whereas if you go with the SVER, you're using primarily AKs and RPGs. And just for you to get an idea of what these factions look like, here's the video that would show up every time you booted up the game. And when I was a kid, I would watch this video over and over again. I would never skip it because I thought it was just so cool.
You have been downtrodden. You have been abandoned. Now is your time to rise up out of the oppressed, to emerge from the shadows. Ignite the thunder of freedom. Now you fight for yourself, for riches, for honor, for the brotherhood.
The ATAC 2000 is the latest in assault rifle technology, capable of up to 800 rounds. Training completed. Congratulations, operative.
Join these ranks to uphold the Millennium Accord. Improvise, adapt, overcome.
Time to lock and load, boys. We fight with the best now. Let's do this.
The most impressive thing that came out of MAG wasn't the lore or the story that it was built around, but it was the massive battles that would play out. MAG had game modes which would include a total of 256 players in just one server. That's like a 128 versus 128. And at the point, it held the Guinness World Record for the most people inside of one video game server. Now, they currently don't hold this record, but they may still hold it when it comes to first-person shooters exclusively. I wouldn't know, you'd have to look that up. But I remember when I was in middle school, I got the Guinness World Records Gamers Edition, and I was so happy because I found the game that I play constantly was in there. And so I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. But just overall, the large amount of people that would be in these servers was just amazing. The smallest server would have 64 people. It'd be a 32 versus 32 team deathmatch. The next game mode was Sabotage, which was also a 64 player game mode, and the objective was for the attacking team to take out 2 forward uplink centers, blow them up, and once those two were blown up, they both had to push into one singular. And so when it got towards the end of the round, it'd be 32 people attacking and 32 people defending, and it was just insane taking part in that. The next game mode was Acquisition, which was basically just the biggest game of capture the flag that was ever out there. And this game mode had a total of 128 players, which was a 64 versus 64, in which the attacking team had to push forward, similar to Sabotage, and take out objectives and push forward closer and closer towards the enemy spawn. And by the enemy spawn was a large vehicle. And so a group of soldiers or one particular soldier could go in, sneak in, grab the vehicle, and then they would have to take it back all the way through the map while the defensive team is trying to destroy the vehicle, because they'd rather have it destroyed than have the attacking team get it and win the game. And so that's how you'd win the game. The defense either had to run down the time clock before they could get to it, or the attacking team could get it and take it all the way back to their spawn point. Okay, finally, the biggest game mode was Domination. And this was the 256 player match. And it was a 128 player versus 128 player game mode. And I wish more first person shooters had game modes like this, because it was just so fun. And the level of depth felt in the battle this large, in my opinion, continues to be unmatched. Like, the battle was just so big that there was even a chain of command. And the chain of command worked like there was a officer who just led the attack and was responsible for the 128 players, and below him was 4 platoon leaders, and each platoon leader had 4 squads, and each squad had a squad leader. And so there would be a total of 8 people on a squad. And so you can imagine just this huge chain of command that was supposed to work. It was insane. But what was even cooler was how these battles took place. And the objective of the battle was the attacking force had to take control of an objective that was in the very center of the map. And so there would be a platoon that would spawn on the north, south, east, and west side of the map. And then it worked like a game of Sabotage, where each platoon had to go forward and capture points until they unlocked the next objective and the next objective, until eventually they met in the center. But what was really cool about the way that this match would work was the amount of freedom that you had, because you weren't confined only to your platoon's side of the map. If you're attacking on the east side of the map and you break through and the west side of the map is still struggling, you could go over there, flank around, try to help them. And so the amount of teamwork that was involved was just ridiculous. And whenever, a platoon would push forward, they would go out and they take out anti-aircraft artillery, which would then allow aerial strikes to take place, or you could spawn in as a paratrooper. But what was the most fun and chaotic part of this match was when you finally met in the middle, and you have 128 players defending a certain objective, and you have 128 players trying to attack the objective, and it's just a complete bloodbath. And that's probably the best way to describe it, the only way I can describe it. And I haven't played a first-person shooter since that gives you that feeling of 128 people attacking and 128 people defending, and it's just overwhelming and insane. And it makes me wish that more games were developed like this, with just this massive multiplayer gameplay in mind. It was so unbelievably fun to play this game, and even though the graphics weren't the best and it could be very buggy at times, it was way ahead of its time, and that time still hasn't come yet. As of now, most AAA titles are lucky to have matches that have more than 40 players in it. And as of right now, off the top of my head, Battlefield's probably the largest AAA title with servers big enough to support a lot of players, and they still are limited to 64 player, 32 versus 32. Okay, so here I am talking up this game from 2010, and you're probably asking yourself, if it's so great, why haven't I heard of it, and why haven't I played it? And there are a multitude of factors that go into this reason. First being that MAG was a PlayStation 3 exclusive, and it's obvious that exclusive games won't sell as much as games that are on multiple platforms. And not only that, but it was an exclusive to the PS3, and the PlayStation 3 is probably one of the worst consoles of that generation. And at the time of release in 2010, the Xbox 360 and the Wii were just so much more popular than the PlayStation 3. Other than being a PlayStation 3 exclusive, another reason why they wouldn't sell as many copies is because MAG was overshadowed by a ton of games that were released in 2010. We had games such as the original Call of Duty Black Ops, we had Battlefield Bad Company 2, Halo Reach, Mass Effect 2, Fallout New Vegas, and just a multitude of other games that would have easily overshadowed MAG. MAG was also developed by Zipper Interactive, which was sort of an indie developer before they got bought out by Sony in 2006. However, they never really created anything other than the SOCOM US Navy SEAL games. And I assume those games weren't extremely popular because I rarely hear anything about them. And so down the line, Sony wasn't confident in Zipper, so they eventually closed down Zipper in 2012. It would be 2 years later in 2014 when Sony finally decided to shut down the servers for MAG. It's a shame that a first-person shooter that was this unique was just thrown away, and it was so unique, and this game will always hold a special place in my heart because this was like the first-person shooter that I ever owned. I remember being 10 years old and being so excited to play it for the first time after watching hours of gameplay on it on YouTube, and I remember spending my summers during middle school just sitting on the floor playing MAG for 8 hours a day, and it's the game that really got me into gaming and first-person shooters. But looking back on MAG, I'm really disappointed that 10 years exactly after its release, developers aren't trying to make more huge games like MAG. They obviously have the capabilities of creating servers that can hold hundreds of players, and there are more people playing games now more than ever, and even when MAG was alive, I never really had trouble finding a server that was full of people. Maybe MAG was just a really bad game, but 10-year-old Senator didn't know any better. But it seems like the Battlefield franchise is the only franchise that even comes close to replicating the massive multiplayer type experience that MAG was able to give. I believe these types of games would be received extremely well, especially since there are so many people playing games. There would be a lot of people interested in this type of game, and in a market dominated by Call of Duty and Battlefield, none have really offered an experience that comes close to what MAG offered. And so that's it. I know this video is a little different, but making this video sent me on a huge nostalgia trip and I really enjoyed making it. So let me know if you'd like to see more videos where I go over games that were pretty underappreciated for its time. And thanks for sticking around, and if you remember to hit that subscribe button, that bell icon, that would help me out tremendously. And remember to go follow my Twitch and Instagram. Links will be in the description. As always, have a good one.